Welcome, y'all. Come on in the space. I am so happy to be able to be in this space with you today. As many of you know from having the opportunity to read through the bios throughout this whole time, I'm Wanda Swan, and I have the immense pleasure of serving as the keynote opener um, for this year's Blaze Virtual Summit. I cannot tell you how excited I am to spend this day with you. I have to first say happy Juneteenth and greetings from Georgia because this is such a special day for us. This is such a special time for us. And I cannot even start this without saying that. This conference space, this holiday with Black women, there is no safer space for me to exist in than the collective of women whose history is intersected with mine in direct and indirect ways. And I do not take this space for granted. And I would like to thank you. I would like to thank the Blaze Virtual Summit team. I would love to thank Casey for this opportunity to provide this opening keynote for today. Now, I said all that to say, y'all, I'm going to warn you ahead of time with three disclaimers, okay? The first one is I'm country as hell. I'm talking Mississippi dirt road, collard greens, cornbread country. I'm talking running barefoot across hot rocks country. And I'm talking about more cotton fields than stoplights country. So don't say I didn't warn you, because a lot of the conversation that we're going to have today is stemming from my personal experience, from my childhood, from understanding my positionality from that space. The second thing I'm going to tell you is that, baby, we in for a good time over this next hour. Okay? That means that I want you to let your hair down, put your guard down, lay all our collective trauma down. Okay? Light up this chat and believe that I got you because I know you got me. I want you to believe that we have each other's best interests at heart, not only in this space, in this session, but across the 5 days of the summit, and that there is no force that is big, bad, and bold enough to intrude on the type of synergy that is getting ready to take place at this summit. The last thing that I want to give you a disclaimer about is that in the larger landscape of Black womanhood and personhood, you are me and I am you. So if you don't remember anything else from this time today, please remember that if my country ass can build a bridge to liberation out of the scraps that I was given, you can too. Okay? Now let's get started. You are part of a global reset. Those were the words an elder told me in a dream on March 15th, 2020. We were sitting together on a bench in a white room that just seemed to go on forever. There were no windows, but light was abundant and it was peaceful. He was an older Black man with locks that were peppered with gray, and he had the kindest eyes, y'all. My level of comfort and trust with him was an indicator to me that we must have known each other previously or at least been engaged in some deep conversation, although I couldn't recall it. And we sat quietly in reflection, perhaps weighing the previous conversation that we had before I kind of dropped in on myself in this dream. And as I sat with him in comfortable silence, he gently took my hands in his. He looked me in my eyes and he said in a deep, gentle tone, "You are part of a global reset." Now I was confused. And I was confused in the kind of way that you're confused when you hear something that it just doesn't register with you. And I remember thinking, I said, now I know what all these words mean separately, but together, child, I don't understand what's happening. And so I told him, I don't know what this means, you know. And he smiled and he nodded, and he told me that it's time for a global reset and that I am to use my gifts to support this. And again, I am like, I don't know, sir, gracious one. I don't know what this means. I'm lacking some understanding. And he laughed at me. He belly laughed at me, y'all. And he said to me, "You're getting ready to wake up. And I don't want you to forget this. Just continue repeating this with me so that you won't forget after you wake up." And so together we held hands and we chanted, "I am part of a global reset. I am part of a global reset. I am part of a global reset." And when I woke from the dream, the chant was on my lips, but I had no idea about the path I was getting ready to take. But fortunately for me, this wasn't the first time or the first instance that my calling kind of fell into my lap. It was just the first time that I chose myself enough to be obedient to something that was larger than me. I'm a fat, black, nappy woman from Mississippi who has been studying whiteness since I was 8 years old out of survival. My mother gave my sisters and I the talk at a very early age, and it went something like, "Don't do nothing that gets you so far out of touch with me that I can't come get you." And I remember hearing that and thinking, where could I ever go that you can't come get me? But my mother knew that Black women still didn't have autonomy to be stewards of their children's safety. And she knew, and she taught us how to move around whiteness without disturbing it, because that was the only system of defense that she had against it. So we were taught to be agreeable. We were taught to grant whiteness a type of comfort that will ensure we come home at night largely unscathed. That comfort was all about me bending, stretching, contorting to avoid the jagged edges of oppression, and then resetting myself to do it all over again tomorrow. And that process is how nervous, overachieving Black girls are created. My granny, my mother's mother, was a mammy for part of her life. And I know some people like to say domestic worker because of the connotations of that word. But if I'm not anything else, y'all, I'm honest. And if I'm not anything else than honest, I'm country. And I'm just a straight shooter. That is a part of her history. It's a part of my family's history. And she raised a few kids from white, well to do families in my still politely segregated town. And I also want to note that, y'all, I am only 41 years old. So this is not ancient history, okay? And though she loved these children and she would spend days cleaning her house before they came to visit her later in life, and even made us spend days cleaning her house in anticipation of their visit, she was well aware of how harmful whiteness was. I remember one day she said to me, "I don't believe white folks know how low down whiteness is. If they did, I don't believe they do it." And that one statement sowed a seed in my brain that I would not reap for 30 years, y'all. This was reaped in what I call the after. And when I say the after, I mean after I had done all the things whiteness told me to do in order to be safe and counted. After I'd gone to school, gotten multiple degrees, joined a sorority, landed the job at several prestigious universities. After I learned just how unsafe mainstream workplaces were for Black women. After I learned that there would never be a comfortable seat at the table for my representation, my ideas, and my humanity. After I learned that surviving the American workforce as a Black woman is a series of breaking in, breaking down, breaking out, rinse and repeat. Until we find our voices to be smaller, our labor to be unappreciated, and our God given talents to be minimized. So my granny separated white people from whiteness, and for the first time, I had a nuanced thought about whiteness existing as components instead of just people. She taught me to unassemble whiteness, to pick it up, to examine it, to recognize its sophisticated design. 30 years after my grandmother's statement, I blew my life up. And I went from being a nervous, overachieving Black girl whose reset button had short circuited in unsafe systems years ago, child, wasn't no saving it, to an entrepreneur with this wild idea of making a living by telling white people in white centered systems that they're racist all day long. My grandmother gave me the keys to a world that had been patiently waiting for me to build it. She handed me the keys to liberation. Now, I don't want anyone to misunderstand this story as being the end of a fairy tale because it is not the case at all. Remember that beautiful, wonderful visit that I had with the elder and all the talk of the global reset in 2020? Well, that dream came after I was several months into a paid administrative leave from my $75,000 a year job for being a whistleblower. I had a new house, a car note, and other obligations that made taking a chance on me sound not just frivolous, but downright irresponsible and wasteful because Black women don't take chances. They're just too expensive because we've never lived a life that's solely ours. There's always someone else to think about: parents, partners, children, siblings, etc. And because Black girls are often raised hard with expectations, while Black boys are often loved hard with excuses, there's an unwritten and inherited guardianship of other people's problems that culturally lies on our shoulders, pressing down so far that it is simply easier to bend and stretch and contort than it is to cast it off and face unknown consequences. And so, believe me when I say I had doubts about what should come next for me. But the dreaming was the easy part. I knew I knew that I would take my 15 plus years of experience in the anti-violence field and my secret research project on the hidden Black founders of the anti-violence movement and center my business around Black liberation and center Black liberation as being the only way to the future of abolition. Now, I had research developed on how white supremacy is a social conditioning that we all breathe in. And depending on who you are, how you present, the system will tell you a narrative that gets you closer to the goal of sustaining oppression. Now, for Black girls, that looks like being a nervous, overachieving Black girl, believing the myth of white superiority, internalizing the system's strategies of suppressing you as your own personal inadequacies. But that's another story for another day. My dream was to train, educate, and coach white identified people, white assimilated people of color, on how to counter their oppressive muscle memory and use their privilege and proximity to complete the work started by women centuries ago through the implementation of anti oppressive work, anti oppressive frameworks, infrastructure, and strategies. So, this was my purpose work. And when I talked about it, or dreamed about it, or planned for it, I could see future me changing the world. But y'all, there is a very big leap between dreaming your purpose and living in your purpose. And that gap only began to close for me when I realized that I had to practice liberation for myself before my purpose could see the light of day. There is a personal responsibility and relationship that I had to develop with liberation and abolition before I could ever begin to think that I was ready for this work. And the first hurdle was to fully square up with white supremacy and understand my opponent. And I'm talking square up, okay? Because, see, I'm country. I keep trying to tell you I'm country. And it's just, that is what we do, right? While I've always understood just how alive white supremacy is, it wasn't until later that I realized how much the success of white supremacy depended on me not honoring my own humanity. And anyone who's ever trained under me knows that I often personify white supremacy. I often talk about white supremacy as a human. I often describe it as an entity that is alive and well because it is alive, and it has no use for Black women outside of its own inventions for us. A large part of my work as a as an anti-oppressive coach also means that I'm a researcher. And so I spend a lot of my time sitting and surrounded by books and researching old documents and going back into census records because my goal is to find the trail of the people who were left behind. And in finding that, there are so many stories that are unraveled. And one thing that we have to understand is that US history shows us that Blackness was long ago delegated to the role of a perpetual laboring force and nothing else. That means that my ancestors, me, my children, were to never know freedom. We were seen as a demographic only fit to toil, to breed, and die. So hear me when I say white supremacy did not properly plan for Black women. White supremacy did not properly plan for us. Okay? It did not plan for us. It did not plan for this summit, and it did not plan for your purpose. It simply could not have prepared for you, sis. Couldn't. And every day that you get up and set out to make your dreams a reality and leave a mark on this world, white supremacy is pissed because it never saw you coming, and it can't predict your ingenuity. It can only punish you after the fact. And it does. When my granny said that white supremacy was low down, child, she knew what she was talking about. She knew. This is a low down, gutter butt, ignorant some or other. You hear me? And no one knows that more than us. No one. No one. Because when you are descended from people who were constantly told that they were not human and they had no rights, and the system was able to do what they wished with them. You know, you feel in our DNA how low down white supremacy was, and it is something that not a lot of people have that experience with. It will punish you. It will attempt to slow you down. It will remove resources. It will remove friends. It will block possible ventures, and it will try to convince you that it was all your fault. It will try to convince you that your dream is too big or too small or the market is too crowded. And it will even get your family involved in trying to convince you. And now you're getting jumped by your family and white supremacy. And now you're doubting yourself. My family told me that white folks ain't going to pay you to tell them that they racist. My family told me you can't open a business during the pandemic when Fortune 500 companies are closing. But they were wrong. And they were wrong to the tune of about $500,000 in revenue, y'all, in less than 4 years. They were wrong. But I don't blame them for that because that's internalized white supremacy telling us that in order to be safe, we have to walk within these lines. We had to be the anxious, overachieving Black girl. But I want you to know that entrepreneurship is one of the most direct and defiant paths that Black women can take to create a safe environment for ourselves. It is the liberatory act of naming yourself, honoring your humanity, and amplifying the gifts that you've been blessed with. It is also how you honor each version of you. Each version of you that you needed to be in order to get where you are today, in order to get here. It is the adoption of a new way of bending. It's a type of bending that is derived from discovery, and it brings forth a rebirth, a shape shifting that centers you first. Entrepreneurship is you giving yourself the grace that the world refused you. It is you giving yourself the voice that the world denied you. It is you building the table that the world kept you from. Do you know just how cold you got to be to create your own balm and salve, to gift yourself when the world was not interested in seeing your humanity? That's cold. I had to gain a better understanding of the impact of the gift of Black liberation on myself as not only just a Black woman, but as a Black entrepreneur. Because I have to keep this space sacred and not dilute it with all the oppressive tools I learned to previously stay afloat in the mainstream systems. And y'all know what I'm talking about. This system is bigger than me, and it feeds so many people in so many different ways. And the tools that I learned to survive, to barely survive, mainstream white center systems are useless here. Because this space only works through vulnerability, humility, and accountability. And so when we look at and think about, and I want you to think about all of the ways that your current system, your structure that you're building, the walls that you hit, the ways in which you don't feel like you're quite hitting the mark, I want you to examine your toolbox. Because you may just have an old tool left in there that doesn't fit the job anymore. Vulnerability, humility, and accountability. Vulnerability means that I have to show up now authentically, and I am responsible for honoring the authenticity and personhood of all who are attached to this dream, this vision, this purpose, and learn from it. Humility means I have to come to this space without ego, without rigid hierarchical structures and definitions. They don't even belong to us. We are all learning from each other with open lines of communication and engagement. And accountability simply means I have to co create an ethical and honest environment. And these three pieces are the newness that these old systems are not centered in. And this is why Black liberation is vital to entrepreneurship. And if you're not building systems that dismantle capitalism and lessen the gap between where your people are and abolition, you a fraud, sis. You a fraud. And you're building a house of cards. As I wrap up my time with you this morning, I want to offer 5 lessons that I learned from this journey. The first lesson that I learned is that as a Black woman entrepreneur, you are your most liberatory act. You are your most radical protest to oppression. You are a possibility model that contradicts all the justifications that have been given to oppress us. You are literally that girl. You are. Number 2, nervous overachieving Black girl syndrome is a trauma response to white supremacy. And it can show up in your personal and professional life. It is important that you are doing the work to understand the ways that oppression show up, the baggage, the residual energy that is left over, because your space is sacred. This project that you're working on is sacred. And you were never supposed to be here, sis. That's what I need you to understand. There was never a plan for us. So everything that you're doing is remarkable. It is already outstanding. So you don't need to hold on to those systems because they never valued you, because their measuring stick for value is just too small. It's too meager. The third thing I learned is that liberation is already here, because if it wasn't, the world wouldn't be so mad. They wouldn't be so up in arms. Why are you so hot? Because it's here. It's within us. It is that thing that told you to come and take a chance on you. It is that thing. It is that energy. That's why they're mad. We don't have to go seek it out. It's already here. You're already doing it. The fourth thing, the power of the collective terrifies white supremacy. Because white supremacy is an individualistic identity, and it wins by telling people there's not enough to go around, but why should you be left out? What the collective embodies is a force that overpowers that thinking. You got to have people. This space is a space for you to cultivate that, but you have to have a collective in order to be successful. And last but not least, and I'm going to take this minute first to shout out my collective, Melissa Swan, my big sister, and my co-everything, co-owner, co-pilot, everything. Marvette Lacey, Dr. Marvette Lacey, my co-everything. Number 5, you are part of a global reset. So reset as often as you need, Black woman. Honor and nurture all the versions of you that were necessary to get you here without shame, because there's already enough systems out there critiquing the effect of our trauma without acknowledging the cause. So, as it was said to me, I am going to say to you, you are part of a global reset. You are to use your gifts to support this time. And I believe in you, and I want that for you. Thank you.
Light it up with the emoji, y'all. Drop it in the chat. Cue your questions in the Q&A. Raise your hand if you want to come on stage and ask your question audibly. Look, listen, I can't even take time for the people, but you already know. You fracture me. You fracture me every single time you open your mouth, sis. You are griot. You are the visible griot of our time, and our body remembers. When you open your
Come
mouth,
on.
bodies remember. Like we
Ooh,
remember. We don't need the books. We don't we like that's their way. We don't have to write it down. That's
exactly.
how we build pyramids. We remember, you know. So
Exactly.
I'm just I'm just grateful. Y'all put it in the Q&A. Put it in the Q&A. Put it in the Q&A. Raise your hand to come on stage. To hear, I see you. I'm going to pull you up. I just want to follow suit from Lawanda, Big Sis. Big Sis showing the way, lighting the way. Shout out to her for being my mentor. My God, I just thank God for you, sis. I thank God for you, sis. Shout out to Raven, who's always in the booth for me for every single summit. I say things to Raven like, Raven, I need this to have hair on her arm. I need to have perfume. And I'm talking about like graphics. I'm talking about visuals. I need her to have a voice. And Raven, like she's a monster. I thank you, Hannah Joy White, for being an incredible right hand and COO. Latoya Dixon, I thank you so much for being the brilliant engineering mind that you are, and so vulnerably beautiful in a way that you intersect with my life. Priscilla, I thank you for being the marketing person. I could not do any of this without y'all. I am the culmination of every Black woman that has
Yes.
poured into me. So thank y'all. Okay, I'm bringing y'all to the stage. You call, sis. You call. Okay. So all right, so Ahira, I'm going to bring you up after I show one question on the stage. So Winnie, your question is going to be first. Winnie says, Lawanda, I don't have a question, sis. I just need you to know that I put on a shoe just so I could throw it. You started us off right, and I thank you for seeing us so clearly, Ashe.
Oh, Wendy, thank you. Y'all gonna make me cry. Thank you. No, I'm so honored to be able to have this real frank conversation with women who look like me. Y'all just don't know. Y'all just don't know how much y'all fill me up. So thank you. Thank y'all.
Ashe, Ashe. Ahira, I am bringing you to the stage. The mic is yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, this is my first time attending this virtual summit, so I'm just very humble and appreciative of being here. But Lawanda, let me tell you something, sis. You have literally broken apart probably my last line of defense in
Oh,
terms of doing what I need to do. And when I tell you that these past couple of months have been so strenuous for me that I'm taking a leap of faith in doing what I am called to do in terms of the assignment that the good Lord or the source has put upon me. And now I am more convinced than ever before that I need to continue to be in alignment to my assignment, and listening to you and hearing you. What you said, sis, resonates. I got tears coming down my face. You just don't know how powerful your words have not only impacted me, but so many people, because there have been dark days when when it feels like you against the world, and growing up around those that don't necessarily connect with us, relate to us, or even those who have those Uncle Tom syndromes and those y- y- it's a lot. And I just
You're
want to
right.
say thank you so much, sis, for being a voice to a lot of us who haven't had an opportunity to yell and speak out our worth. I thank you so much for seeing yourself to where you're able to see us and help us all come on this same platform. And I just want to continue to to just continue to pray for you,
Yeah.
continue to humbly admire you. I thank you so so much from the bottom of my heart because you literally probably have been one of the factors that have saved my life. So thank you,
Ahira,
Ahira.
Ahira, thank
Ahira.
you. Thank you. I want to make sure I get your name right. Thank you for correcting me. Ahira, when a Black woman prays for you, there is no higher connection to the source. So whenever a Black woman tells me that they are praying for me, I do not take it lightly. And I thank you for that. I also want you to know that none of this is real. None of these systems are real, but the impact of them are so real and so detrimental. And everything that you see about yourself that you feel is not up to par, or is not you, it is not your fault. It is the system working exactly the way it's supposed to. And this is a system that is smart because this system has a 400+ year head start on us.
Facts.
It is smart, but it never counted on you dreaming. It never counted on your humanity. It never counted on your purpose. It never counted on you. And so when the day gets its roughest, when the people get their coldest, y'all, remember that there is a collective of people out here who know this experience and that this system is acting this way because it just thinks it knows who you are. It has no idea who you are because it has never taken the time to learn us. We've had to learn it. You will be fine as long as you stay on the path of your purpose. And I get it. Last airbender, all of that stuff, just because it's your purpose don't mean it's going to be easy. But one thing Black women know how to do if we don't do nothing else is work towards a cause. That is what my history and my research has shown me, that the history of any type of civil unrest, any type of opportunity to counteract oppressive ills on this land in this country has been headed by Black women as far back as centuries ago. The anti violence movement in general, for example, was created by formerly enslaved Black women. But we got taught that it was some white women in the 70s, honey, who decided to put some things together. Or we were taught that it was some white women in the 20s, honey, who wanted all of that is lies. All of that is bullshit. Black women, everywhere we walk, everywhere we go, every piece of earth that we touch, we bless. So I know you're gonna be okay. I know you're gonna be okay. And I thank you. I thank you so much.
I thank you for
And I am
just
praying for
being
you too,
present.
sis.
Thank you, because this vision is hard, sis. I'm not gonna lie. This is, again, like you said, we are fighting against 400 years of what was a head start, and
Yeah.
this area, this arena for us is it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
a lot. It's a lot. But I thank you, sis. I really do appreciate it. God bless you. Just just keep being your authentic self. I love all of it. I love the Mississippi backwater, hot water, cornbread, fried green tomatoes. I
Yes,
I
ma'am.
love it. I love the nappiness of it all. The hair ain't no. First of all, ain't nothing nappy about you, sis. You grown,
Oh, I'm
so.
nappy. Oh, no, no, no. And I'm happily nappy now. Oh, she nappy girl. She nappy everywhere she can be now.
Well,
Um,
well, it's still fire. It's still
yes,
fire. It's still fierce. So I appreciate you so much, my sister. So thank you. Thank you so
you are
much.
so welcome. Casey, that's why these places, this space is so important. That's why this
Mhm.
space is so important.
Ashay. Ashay.
Mm,
Yeah. You said it. By the time they catch up and know what's going on, it's too late.
it's
It's
too
too
late.
late. It's too late. It's just in us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't study their opponent because they never saw us as
Oh, they
contenders.
never, ever, and they still don't. We still these uncontextualized footnotes. Oh, by the way, black women broke. Like y'all don't even know what's brewing. Like y'all don't
At
even know.
all. At
I
all.
say, I say. Okay, I'm gonna show a question on the stage, Wanda, and then I'm gonna bring up who is next. Chrissy, you're next after this question that I show on stage. So this question is from Crystal, and she asks, "How do we catch ourselves as leaders when we implement oppressive systems out of muscle memory?"
Ooh, Crystal, that is such a great question. I love questions like this. And I love those questions because I have I have an answer. I have an answer. So when I'm not sitting in spaces with dope black women like y'all, in spaces like this, I coach. I coach and I train and I teach. And this is one of the questions that come out often from either white assimilated people of color or just folks in general, right? And what I say is this: I give you one question that you have to ask yourself, and this question is going to put you and get you in the right place for you to understand and to monitor the decisions that you're making. Who does it benefit? Who benefits? If there is, as Black women specifically, there is a system that lives internally within us where we know what whiteness does. Now, as someone who has worked in corporate spaces, someone who has worked in senior leadership, understanding that you are already working in oppressive systems. And so the question that you have to ask yourself, who benefits from this? And you got to go back and you got to trace that line, right? And then you have to ask yourself, who suffers from this decision? Those answers are easy. It's what you're going to do with it after you get them. And how do you advocate? How do you counteract that? Those are strategies. But the way in which you can keep yourself honest is by answering those two questions and then moving accordingly to your values after that.
Hashay, thank you so much, Wanda and Chrissy. I'm bringing you up to the stage. Every time you talk, like tears just flow. Even when you're not, it's just yeah. I'm grateful. Okay, Chrissy, you have the mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ken, how are you, Chrissy?
I am well. How are you, ladies?
Cannot complain.
All right. Well, I just want to say, first of all, that everything you said was so easy to fall in line with for me specifically. I recently read The Token Black Girl. I don't know if you've had the pleasure of reading that yet, but I was a person that was educated in a school system where I was always the minority. I mean, like
Mhm.
in a class with maybe three or four other black kids, and then everybody else was Caucasian. And so you excuse me, primarily most of your life feeling, I mean, you don't even realize that you have become oppressed. You don't know that you are living, breathing, eating, and everything that you want to do is functioning on a higher level because you've aligned yourself and assimilated with your peer group, which is,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's people that can't even understand where you come from.
Right.
And so, one of the things that I wanted to know is now that I have obviously grown beyond that point, and I do a lot of things in my community, which is, black based, black business owned, and all of that. Sometimes when you talk to people that look like you, and you talk about current events and you talk about the power of the black dollar and these kinds of things, there's a lot of pushback from
Hmm.
people that look like me. How do you build your collective? How do you talk to people that don't, who look like you but don't believe in spending the black dollar in the black business? Listen, during prom season, there was so much crazy stuff going on with black girls who sent their money to black
Hmm.
dressmakers, and they didn't get their dresses, and then they, slaughtered these businesses online, and just all of these things that I know, had it been, like a Caucasian, it may have not worked out that way. There's still that fear of, you know what I mean? Like not putting
Yep.
certain businesses on blast. Like we will buy Gucci, we'll buy Tommy Hilfiger, we'll still support these businesses and causes that we know don't care about black people, black causes, whatever. But when it comes to small businesses and keeping dollars in small black communities and things like that, how do you build a collective when sometimes black people are white supremacists?
Hmm. Absolutely. And what you're talking about, Chrissy, is something that is so real. And the reality of it is that white supremacy has not survived this long by just white people buying into it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What we know is that white supremacy can be internalized because it is a social conditioning.
Right.
It is a type of social conditioning that, like I said earlier, it may tell us something different. But what you have to understand, the social conditioning white supremacy tells white people to go forth, get it, sacrifice everybody else at all costs. What it tells us is to don't trust people who look like us. Because the basis of white supremacy is anti-blackness. And that means that anti-blackness is everybody's default. And
Right.
so, if our default, if the messages that are coming to us every day is don't trust Black people as a Black woman, as a Black person, that creates a culture where there does not have to be a white person around for white supremacy to be real live and in full effect, right? And so that is, and I say that simply to validate and to name what you're talking about because it is really real. There is a level of harsh criticism that exists with Black business owners,
Oh yes. Oh
right?
yeah.
That does not ever, there is this inherent default trusting of whiteness. There's this inherent default
Mm-hmm.
trusting of white businesses. Um, and there is no grace. There is no grace that's given to small businesses that are trying to do a thing. There's also so much vitriol towards businesses that are not legit and are not doing right by people. And that's because it's a different level of betrayal when they look like us. But it puts us in a very different, in a space that is very uncomfortable because if you are immensely betrayed, feel betrayed when Black people do this to you, because we know scammers be scamming now, but these scams,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And we know that that's a level of betrayal that's just like, come on now. And then over here, you have this. Well, I don't really, I buy these name brand, I buy Gucci. We are literally stuck in the middle of a rock and a hard place.
That's true.
And the only thing you can do when you are stuck in the middle of a rock and a hard place is to show up consistently. I need you to think back, and it may just be me. I think back to the days where, y'all know country, Mississippi. We grew up on the farm, child. The apocalypse hit, y'all come look for us. We got y'all.
All
Okay.
right. All right.
All right. Just know. You got a little piece of land out there in the SIP. We know how to raise some animals. We got y'all covered. But I think about how back in the day when there was somebody new who would come through the neighborhood and they may look like us, but we don't really know them. And back then it was, people, everyone really depended upon entrepreneurs because of segregation, because of how high the price cost was for non-black folks. But there was still this space of, you say you're gonna do what for how much and do what now? Let me think about it. Right. And I remember my grandmother, and for me, the only thing that comes to mind is the fruit man, the man who used to come around with the fruit on the back of the truck. I remember my grandmother had like a reliable fruit man. Y'all gonna think this is so random, but I promise I'm bringing it back around. And when he got sick, it was time for her to get another fruit man. And the hurdles that she put those people through in order to make sure that her fruit was good, that is very much hurtful, but it is also how, if we cannot distinguish, if our trauma does not allow us to distinguish between friend and foe because of the impact of the trauma of white supremacy, the only way we can counteract that is to be consistent and be patient. And to also understand that not everybody is going to be your client. And so I would ask you to think about, who will your client, who is your client? Who is your ideal client? And if that ideal client still lines up with the people who are looking at you upside your head, you need to have a real conversation with those folks and say, look, now you've been looking at me upside my head for 3 weeks, and I keep telling you that I'm coming with the truth, and it ain't no lie. What is it going to take for you to realize that I am just here to support you? You just got to have a real conversation about it. Tell me what it is. Tell me about your last experience that makes this so difficult.
Me? Oh,
No, that's the
oh,
question I would
oh,
ask them.
okay.
Like, tell me what happened.
Mhm.
Because usually when people complaining like that, they just want to be heard. They want somebody to know how somebody did them wrong so that they can feel validated.
Hmm.
And so it's the process of vulnerability. It's the vulnerability. And sometimes we have to, in these spaces, we have to hold ourselves accountable for the stuff that people did before us, because that's our culture. And these folks, we don't have an outlet. We don't have an outlet for our trauma. And so sometimes it is cleaning that up, or sometimes it is realizing that those are not your people and you need to find your ideal client avatar. Was that helpful?
It, it really was. I mean, I think that you're amazing. Everything that you said resonates. I want to say this, my sister and I, we work together, we play together, we're best friends, and we were just having a conversation. And I was telling her, sometimes it's so overwhelming.
Hmm.
By Friday, the the job of being a black woman. Listen,
Hmm.
now you already have your regular job. Then you have whatever your side business, side hustle, whatever. If you're a business owner full time, props to everybody on this journey at Blaze, at this summit. If you are a full time entrepreneur, I am not. Kudos to you. If you're a mother, kudos. If you're a single mother, kudos. If you're a single mother with a husband, because those exist too, kudos. All
I'm
of those jobs are enough by
sick
Friday.
of it.
But then the job of being a black woman, what I think is the most revered, the most, yet the most, one of the most hated. And when I say hated, I mean, I saw this video on Instagram, and I'll keep it really short. This girl was talking about, she said something about like the bad babies and all of these other Caucasian women that emulate black women. She said the issue with that is that they assimilate being black with struggle,
Hmm.
and that's the black woman that they like to emulate, the long nails and the hood and the the black women that are struggling in growth and just all of these other things. And for the women who go through that, like some of the employees at my job, that stuff is so real. And by the end of the week, some of us are broken down and we're tired. There's no one pouring into us, there's no one edifying us, there's no one patting us on the back, there's no one listening to us cry. There's just nothing. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
on Monday, we're expected to get up and pick up all of those bags and do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always look forward to this summit because for these 5 days, we have a bunch of women that are pouring into us and they're doing it for free. And so I always look forward to the summit, but it isn't just an overwhelming kind of thing. And so when I ask questions, I'm always looking for the answers that may not necessarily be spoken, but what's in between. And
Right.
so I appreciate that. There's some things that I can pass along, but to all the women that are here, keep going. I know that it gets better from where I'm sitting, but I don't know. Thank you,
Yeah.
Miss LaWanda Swan. Thank you, Casey. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Chrissy.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Chrissy. Love you, Mama.
Love
Appreciate
you too. Bye bye.
you.
One of the
Bye.
one of the things that I'll add quickly, Casey, is that I remember that same meme that Chrissy is talking about, and this idea of white women emulating the caricature of
Mhm,
Black women, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
emulating what they think Black women
mhm,
do or are,
mhm,
you know,
mhm.
and utilizing the adornments that Black women like, right?
Yep.
And branding those adornments as ghetto or branding those adornments as being one thing or the other, right? Because the truth of the matter is white women wear long nails too, Black women wear long nails too. But what we know is that there are things that what's the saying? It's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I
Yeah,
do it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I think that's also the energy that we have to always understand too. Like this is a system. What we have to remember is that this is a system that as long as the system exists, we will never be seen as human. So
Agreed.
when you are in a system that will never see you as a fully formed human, you
Mhm.
gotta stop expecting more from
That's
it
right.
that it will give you. And you
That's
have
right.
to build your own.
Period.
Yeah. And for
Yeah.
me, what liberation has always looked like is showing up in all of the ways that I'm able to show up because
That's
I live in a world that I have been able to build and create, and I'm safe there and it's great there. And I just want
Ashe.
that for all of y'all.
Ashe. Luanda, thank you so much for showing up and pouring into us. I see more questions and I see more hands, y'all, but we actually have to wrap here and do some housekeeping before the next session, which is which is Black Emancipation. We're doubling down on this thing from Denicia Hilton Harper. But Lawanda, definitely please tell folks where they can find you, how they can stay in touch, etc.
Absolutely. They can find me in these social media streets. It is usually at Start by Talking. I think someone had put it in the chat. You can find me on Instagram personally. It is at Lawanda D Swan. Um, we also have a website. I think that's in the chat also. So it's startbytalking.mykajabi.com. And there you'll find more information about the team. You also get more information about just what we do and how we do. And last but not least, I know that there's probably some other questions that are up. And please email me at sbtinfo. Start by talking sbtinfo at oneswan.com. And we'll put that in the chat as well. I would be happy to answer any and all questions that y'all have or to just connect. And I thank y'all so much for this space. And I'm wishing and hoping, because I know that this is going to be an amazing experience for y'all. Thank you so much, Casey, for lending space and time for this keynote opening.
Thank you. I could go on for days and still not have all the words. I could dump out all the vocabulary that I know today and still not be able to articulate what you mean, not only to me, and the little girl that is healing because of you, but the entire globe. So you are part of a global reset, sis. You doing the Lord's work. You doing a phenomenal job. Keep clearing the path for us.
Right.
We behind you. Promise you, sis. We got your back, your size, your everything, and we'll protect you at all costs. I mean that. I mean that.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you. I love you. And I love all of y'all in this space. I know I did leave a freebie, so please, I talked about the 500K that I made in less than 4 years. Every single last template that I created, I'm giving it away. Use as you see fit. And they have instructions. I just want everybody to win. So please feel free. Thank you. Thank y'all.
Okay. Thank you so much, LaWanda. Appreciate you. Y'all, LaWanda just talked about the freebie that she has for you all, literally giving you the gems on how she made $500,000. Listen, because the revolution will not be televised. Okay. It is already in the app. It was already there this morning when you woke up. Okay. At your fingertips, there to download Blaze Group app. And everybody's freebies will be on the website. Okay. Blaze Virtual Summit. Once we finish this thing, it will stay out for 3 months, right? Like just accessible for everyone. BlazeVirtualSummit.com. The only reason we put on the app is so that it's at your fingertips. If you wake up in the morning after your dream, okay, you can grab the thing that you're finally ready for. Like that is the whole purpose. That is the whole purpose. That is the whole purpose. Okay. We have to go to the next session. Denicia Hilton Harper, I love you so much. I'm sorry we a minute behind. Y'all know these trains be running, but this is important. LaWanda took her time with it. She took her time with it. And I just need you to reimagine entrepreneurship. This is what it feels like. This is what it is. Right? It has to feel like home. Entrepreneurship is the broadest and fastest path for wealth generation, period. Especially for Black folk. I'm gonna say that one time. Entrepreneurship is the broadest. You can be whatever you want to be, and fastest. Bump the gatekeepers, right? To wealth generation. Especially for Black people, right? So this is what it should feel like, and we are providing stepping stones for it too. I can't go to the next session without doing the Black National Anthem. So let me hit that real quick. Denicia, we coming over. And it goes. Y'all sing with me from your homes, okay? Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Ashe and amen. This session was Black Liberation. I hope you took what you need. The replays are available for 3 months. Okay. So come in again and again and again at blazevirtualsummit.com to take what you need. And we'll see y'all in the next session. Peace.